Okay, so Kevin, if you saw both, I mean, what's your take on it? There wasn't a lot of pushback on anything the vice president had to say, and the questions all seemed very friendly. People seemed excited to see him, unlike the people who didn't seem so excited to see the president earlier this week.
Yes, and it was definitely a different format for sure. And of course, this president is running as an incumbent, right, and has a record to run on, and has to defend a lot of his policies and should be able to take these hard questions. I think to Mercedes' point, if you're complaining about the questions, you're probably losing. And we'll see just a week and a half from now, our own Chris Wallace on this network is going to host the first presidential debate. And we know Chris well in terms of his interviews with both the former vice president and with the president, and he pulls no punches. So again, I think what you saw tonight with Joe Biden was a prepared individual ready to lead on day one. And what you saw last night in Philadelphia with the president was a man who can't answer a simple question with regards to his health care plan, which we're still waiting for 4 years down the road.
Worried that Democrats are overly confident in those polls?
Absolutely, Shannon. I'm a Democrat, so I worry all the time about the polls and what Election Day will look like. Listen, Democrats are going to work their heart outs over these next 3 weeks, going everywhere to make the case to the American people. Joe Biden was in Ohio. He's going to be back in Florida. Dr. Biden is all over the place. Kamala Harris as well, penning her work in the Senate Judiciary Committee. And we're taking no votes for granted. Fox News has reported over 10.7 million votes have already been cast in this country, in the states that have early voting, which is a huge number. It smashes all of the records we've seen from the last 2 years and 4 years in terms of the previous election cycles. So Democrats aren't taking anything for granted. I think we're on the offense, as you've seen recent polling in states like Iowa, in Ohio, in Florida, and across the board. Democrats are really going to work their heart out. As to Jenna's point, taking nothing for granted with the president out there back on the campaign trail, we want to take the fight to the president wherever he is going and make the case to the American people.
Of that in contrast to the polls?
Yeah, Trace, it's like Yogi Berra's famous quote, it's like deja vu all over again. We see a lot of enthusiasm with Donald Trump on the ground in these rallies now in Arizona. He's going to be crisscrossing the country this week in the lead up to Thursday's debate. And of course, there's enthusiasm on the ground for him. I counter that with the enthusiasm we saw in the 5.5 million Americans that have fueled Joe Biden's campaign, smashing all records. The vice president outraised the incumbent president by over $100 million just last month. So there's a lot of enthusiasm that we see in terms of those fundraising numbers, which I think counter what you're seeing in terms of these in-person events with the president on the ground.
And I think it's a fair point, Kevin, but
Yeah, Kennedy, it's a good question. I mean, if you look at past presidential cycles, it was always the couple of days before each debate where both the Republican and the Democratic nominee would hunker down, do debate prep. Donald Trump did it in 2016 with his team. So that's the rarity, is to see a presidential candidate out on the stump to the extent that Donald Trump is in the days leading up to Thursday's debate in Nashville. So I think the Biden campaign is running a traditional campaign, as they have for the last 2 years since announcing, and keeping the vice president with his advisors, practicing for Thursday. There's going to be many more eyeballs on that Thursday debate, I think, than the first debate. Yep. And all of the money is on Thursday night. And Donald Trump really needs to have a good night to change any of the dynamic heading into the final 12 days, which it will be on Thursday.
Does Joe Biden have a plan for the black community? Stacey mentioned the Platinum Plan, which President Trump talks about a lot to try to create more jobs within that community.
Yeah, he absolutely has a plan. You look at the number one issue facing black and brown communities, and it's COVID-19. In the first 20 minutes of the debate, the vice president was very clear in terms of what he would do to address that crisis. We know that it disproportionately affects those communities. That is the number one issue in polling for black and brown communities, and Joe Biden has a plan to tackle the virus. And I give Mitch McConnell, and you had a great interview with him before, a lot of credit. The fact that President Trump has gotten 30% of the federal judges appointed that are Trump judges, including 3 of the Supreme Court justices, I think is a testament to what he's been able to accomplish. But I think that should give all Americans pause when considering the ACA, when considering workers' rights, when considering LGBT rights that are on the docket in these next couple of weeks, that the court cannot be so out of sync with where the American people are on those particular issues. And I think what Joe Biden is pushing for is a court and a judiciary that is more responsive and reflective of this country.
Do you think, though, that because of what happened in 2016, Democrats have been much more targeted and focused? They're not leaving out any potential state, thinking that they have it in the bag.
Yes, Shannon. I mean, the motto for the Biden campaign this cycle has been to take nothing for granted, to go everywhere, compete everywhere, ask everyone on the ground for their vote. Do not take anything for granted. And that's why you saw the former vice president with former President Obama yesterday in Michigan campaigning. Now, polls, to Tom's point earlier in the earlier segment, polling has been remarkably consistent, I think, in Wisconsin and Michigan. And the former vice president has led the incumbent president anywhere between 7 to 9 points on average in those two states. So again, that's why so much of a focus is on Pennsylvania, where those the polling is a bit closer. But again, take nothing for granted. That is the Biden campaign motto. Work as hard as they can in Wisconsin, Michigan. Move those states back to that blue wall and hold those states as they have been for the last 2 generations in terms of going blue. And as we know, 2016 was that outlier with those 3 key states that flipped for the president.
If Biden is able, Kevin, to flip Georgia, what does it mean for pathway to victory for Donald Trump?
Yes, Andrew, it's a good point. I mean, Georgia, if Georgia goes blue, I think that's the final nail in the coffin for the president's campaign. And I think, Democrats I talked to on the campaign are pretty bullish about Georgia. Of course, you saw top surrogates. You have former President Obama going to Georgia today. They like what they're seeing in terms of the early vote. And of course, as we know, it's not just the presidential election that's on the ballot. There's 2 key Senate races in Georgia that could decide who controls the Senate come January. The vice president, of course, spent 40 years in the United States Senate. He knows just how important the Senate is, not just in terms of taking the White House for the Biden campaign, but also being able to govern with the Democratic Senate. So that's why Georgia's so much in play, Sandra.
All right. So who's better suited to get us out of this pandemic, or whose policy would benefit most Americans? Or is it a package deal?
I think it's a package deal, right? I don't think it's a winning argument for the Trump campaign and for the president to be out there saying that he's going to fire Dr. Fauci. Whether you like him or not, in terms of the president, Dr. Fauci has remarkable support among the American people because he levels with the American people, just as the vice president has done in saying he will defeat this virus, not put the country into more lockdowns, but focus attention on this virus, compared to the president who's out there, again, flouting CDC guidelines, saying that we've turned a corner. Americans know better, and Americans want their next president to tell the truth, which is what the vice president has been doing all along during this pandemic.
Hey, good morning, Neil. I mean, this is the playbook that everyone was talking about going into this evening, that the president was going to do just that, looking at where the absentee ballots were, the mail ballots were. You obviously want to get out in front and say that he captured this election when we know not all the votes are cast. We just heard there's over 2 million or so votes left to be counted in Pennsylvania, in Democratic-rich areas in Pennsylvania. The wind is now in Joe Biden's sails in a state like Wisconsin, where he's leading anywhere between 10 and 15,000 votes as Milwaukee comes in, as Green Bay reports. So I think, it's going to be a very long morning, maybe a long day tomorrow. But again, I think, not just speaking as a Democrat, but if you just handicapping this race, I think the Biden campaign is looking better and better, given those Wisconsin numbers, given what's happening, hopefully, in Michigan as well. Yes, Shannon, I mean, this is a very divided country. As the vice president has said, he gave a really conciliatory speech, I think, as you saw tonight in Wilmington, saying that he will be the president of all Americans, not just Democrats, because I think he realizes just how divided we are as a country and the fact that he really needs to unite this country. Now, he also spoke about a mandate. I mean, right now the popular vote stands at about 4.2 million more votes for Joe Biden. I do believe that is a mandate. I do believe he'll get somewhere in the neighborhood of what Donald Trump received in the Electoral College just 4 years ago when Republicans said that was a mandate. So obviously he has the backing of the American people, but he also needs to strike that conciliatory tone to Republicans. You're starting to see some Republicans like Lindsey Graham say, I want to work with Joe Biden, his longtime friend from his days in the United States Senate. So I think you're going to see that tone play out in the next couple of days as we get a clearer picture of this election.
We've had reports there are some internal battles in the White House, maybe some saying the president should consider conceding here. Do you think the pressure over the next couple of days rises, Kevin?
Sure, I think it will certainly be mounting. Now, of course, we know, Trace, in your reporting over the last 4 years, there's not a lot of outside pressure that actually motivates Donald Trump to do one thing or the other. So that's going to be him and his conscience to come forward, whether he wants to be a uniting figure in the ending months and days of his presidency or not. But again, the American people have spoken pretty clearly, as Bret Baier had said earlier, that this is a clarion call. This is a very clear call for Joe Biden to be the president-elect. And regardless of what the president does, Joe Biden will be inaugurated on January 20th.
Kevin Walling, always good to see you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great, Trace. Good to be with you.
And one final quick word to you, Kevin.
Yeah, Dana, let's not forget, too, the power that the president-elect has in terms of executive action. Watch him protect his left flank on things like the Paris Accords, like DACA, other issues that he's in alignment with the progressive wing of the party. So see some action on that, certainly.
Kevin, really smart point. Thank you. Thank you all.
So, Kevin, where do we go from here? Because we hear about people who are also suffering because they're not getting medical screenings, they're not getting medical care. There's the mental health issue, people who are not getting treatment for addiction or even being able to go to their support meetings. How do you balance all those things?
Yes, and it's a really difficult balance. Today we saw over 160,000 new infections across this country, and it is a delicate balancing act because there is a mental health toll that we're all experiencing as well. Many of us are not going home for Thanksgiving. We don't want to infect our older relatives, and it's a really difficult, like I said, balance that we have to weigh in the next couple of weeks with the holidays coming. But I'm encouraged to see at least some Republican governors, as we saw today with Kim Reynolds out of Iowa, others in North Dakota, Utah, West Virginia, moving forward with mask mandates on a state level by these Republican governors that realize that something has got to be done.
Kevin, Joe Biden got 80 million votes. That would be even more than Barack Obama.
Yeah, Maria, I think that's actually a good thing for democracy. The fact that the president got 74 million votes, that Joe Biden got 80 million votes. This is a very large turnout election, and I think part of it is due to COVID. A lot of people took advantage of voting from home via the mail. But again, you saw record levels of engagement because of strong feelings about this president on both sides of the aisle. So the fact that we saw this high turnout election, I think, is something to be celebrated in this country. And again, when all the votes have been counted, Joe Biden won this election by over 6 million votes.
So should Christopher Wray stay?
Yeah, it's a good question, Kennedy. To Robbie's point, I don't think there's no end to the president's pettiness, so it would not actually surprise me to see this firing happen in the last 49 days of the Trump administration. The word is that Bill Barr's job is on the line potentially with what he said in terms of
Bill Barr's
coming forward.
Bill Barr's like, I'm 700 years old. Go ahead, fire me.
He's got his pension. He's got his pension. That's all he cares about.
He's been in government for like 80 years.
But Kennedy, there's a reason why these FBI directorships last 10 years and go beyond administrations, that they should be above the political fold. You're absolutely right. Jim Comey was the second director in the history of the FBI to be fired. The first was by Bill Clinton for malfeasance of that director.
Yeah, he was taking private flights to see his friends and family on the government dime.
It was not good.
One of them
it
jobs.
was not good, for sure. So there is a reason why those terms extend beyond the 4 years of a presidential administration. I hope that practice will continue and that we'll get some questions about the FBI under Director Wray's leadership as well with the Durham probe going forward.